Many people talk about the ups and downs of married life, but no one really prepares you for life after your spouse passes away. Welcome to Widowhood Real Talk with Tina, a safe place for widows, widowers, and their friends and family to talk about love and loss. Find comfort as you listen to honest conversations between Tina and invited guests who've experienced the loss of their forever partner. Share their stories of love, grief, and healing. You are not alone in this journey. Join today's episode and discover a wealth of resources and learn how to connect with others who are traveling the same path. This is Widowhood Real Talk with Tina.
Hello, Paula. Welcome to the Widowhood.
Hey, how you doing?
I am doing well. When you heard widowhood and welcome, what came to your mind when you were hearing those words?
Well, typically when you hear widowhood, you think about people that have lost a spouse.
Okay.
So it was initially, okay, that's a platform for those who have lost spouses, but it's not always.
It is not, and thank you. And I want to explain the name of it. And I've thought about if I should change it or not, but the legal aspect of that, I am where I'm at. So widowhood, I am from Chicago. So hood is community. Hood is family. Hood is my network. I am the widow that lost her husband, but part of that hood is my children who lost a dad.
Okay.
That hood is my siblings who knew my husband for their just about entire life, lost to them what was like uncle or brother. My parents, my friends who we had been couple friends with for years, lost their friend as I lost my husband. Now, no one ever tried to make their grief of Mark bigger than me losing my husband, but it was a loss across our community. And that conversation is held from different angles, whether it's a conversation I'm having with someone who has lost a parent or someone who has lost a sibling, someone who has lost a child. So it's not just the spouse, it is everyone that was connected to that person that is no longer here is part of that hood. I just happen to have the pleasure to be in from the widow perspective, but the voice from every angle is necessary because if that widow feels like she's grieving alone, or maybe sometimes people were not married or they didn't have a significant other. But if every angle of that person is not viewed, we never see the totality of them. I had a podcast recording where my son spoke about his dad, totally different version from me. And in November, I hope to have a conversation with my daughter talking about the loss of her dad, a different angle. So, yes, it is the widow and the hood coming together.
That community.
Yes.
Gotcha. Yep. Okay, I like that. I like that.
Cool. So I'm going to read your bio before we get into this conversation. Y'all think you've seen these on TikTok, but yeah, the girl is out here in the reading glasses community. So
Glass hood. How about that?
Paula Foster is a native of Atlanta, Georgia. Just as rare as it is to find a Georgia peach, she is also a rare jewel. Because of the struggle she faced growing up, she truly feels it's pushed her into the person she is today. Who is that person, you ask? Paula is a mother of three children, a licensed pastor, domestic violence survivor, an advocate, realtor, author, publisher, life coach, and has a life coach certificate academy, mentor, speaker, and event host. She is the founder of Fostering Destiny Enterprises, which encompasses the many businesses and organization Paula manages. Paula has spoken and or hosted many events and has received testimonies of how she helped change lives of others. She speaks on her past while encouraging others to not allow their past to determine their present future. Paula is the author of the 1 a.m. 30 affirmations to reaffirm your true self, Finishing Strong, 7 Keys to Fulfilling Your Purpose, becoming the author within, and co-author of I Am Mother's Edition. She is scheduled to release more in the coming months. Paula enjoys reading, bowling, skating, relaxing. I don't know where she got time to relax, but it's in there. Um, Volunteering, and going to concerts. She also enjoys listening to music, spending much needed time with her family. Life may have dealt her some unfortunate cards, but she has definitely learned to play with what she has been dealt. She is a virtuous woman.
I have time to rest, ma'am. I make time.
I'm
Rarely,
glad to hear that.
rarely, but I do.
I'm just going to say yes. When you hear someone reading that, how does that feel?
I feel like I am just that person, like a accomplished individual. Because a lot of times you don't realize all the different hats that you wear. And while you may not wear them at the same time, it's still that you're doing all of those things. And so it also makes me remember things that I need to probably kick back into gear, because some things did fall by the wayside because of different occurrences in life. So it serves two purposes. It helps me to see that I'm not as far away from what I thought I was far away from, but at the same time, it helps me see the gaps that need to be filled. So
Okay. So when you heard me explain the widowhood, that gave you a different perspective about the person we're going to speak about, which is your dad, which is unfortunately aligned with the same things that my children. They speak about their dad and that loss. What is your memory of your dad?
I have to be honest and say the most memorable thing about my dad made me feel like a princess, even in the short time that I had him. And
Okay.
it was like with him, I could do anything, and there was nothing that you could tell anybody any differently. And so even though I lost him at an early age, that's what I always tell people is that while I don't have a lot of memories of him because he wasn't in the home,
Okay.
that's one thing that always stood out to me was that some way, somehow, I always felt like daddy's princess.
And how you said you didn't have him long. How old were you when your dad transitioned from this world?
According to me and my mom's calculations, it happened on my 11th birthday.
That right there is a mouthful. How many years ago was that?
That was about 30 years ago.
And how 30 years ago, is it easy to say that now, or how does that come off the tongue?
It's easy to say now. I struggled with that for probably the first 10 to 20 years or so.
Okay.
If not 25 years, but it's gotten easier. And I think it's in part to just information that I found out
Okay.
probably about 20, 25 years after his passing. And so it was kind of easy. Unfortunately, it was easy for me to kind of let go of the things that what I was holding in. It was
Okay.
kind of easy for me to just let go and be like, okay, dad's gone. Because once you find out certain information, it's like, mm, I love him, but I gotta let him go.
There's so much to think about right there. You were 11 years old, and literally that was something that was impact and I say this differently. The way it impacts your life for that 10 to 20 years is different than the way it impacts your life now. And oftentimes when I'm speaking to people, they're wondering what their children are going through losing a parent. And that may be hard to think about or remember, but if someone came to you and they're going, my child's 13 or 10 and their dad passed. Is there something you can tell me that you recall from your experience, how you felt or what that looked like, that would give me some insight to how my child is feeling now?
If I look back on that time, what I didn't get a lot of open dialogue from my mom. And so it was like once he passed, she poured more into me materialistically
Okay.
than mentally and emotionally. So she felt like, and we kind of talked about it. So she felt like, she was trying to fill in the gap. And of course, she didn't really know how to navigate a new normal for me. And so it was like, you know what? I'll just give her everything that she wants. But in all honesty, what I needed was to kind of talk through that and what that looked like. Because if we don't and we don't get the right resources, it leads us down the road that I ended up going down after losing him and not having that male to kind of come in. Because I lost him at a very pivotal time in any young girl's life. So you're
Yes.
talking about 11 years old. I'm now transitioning I'm a preteen. So I'm now transitioning into those preteen years, those hormonal years,
Yes.
going from a little girl to a young lady, so that was a very pivotal time in my life. And not to have anyone to fill that gap or kind of step in, yeah, it leads because you begin to look for love in all the wrong places. You begin to look for attention in places because, hey, I already didn't necessarily have him in the home, but now I really have him in my life. So now what does this new norm look like for me?
Mm. So that makes sense. How would that be done? Like, if a parent is looking like, "How do I do that? What do I do differently than giving them material things?" How does that actually, would you say that would be worked out?
Is having the tough conversations, doing check-ins. And again, I understand I'm an 80s baby. So of course I have a mom that was born in 1945. So knowing what I know now, it wasn't easy for her to give me something that she never got, even though she had her father. Her experience with her father was more from what I've come to learn. It was more from an mentally abusive kind of, it wasn't a healthy environment. So while she couldn't necessarily give me what I may have needed because she didn't have it herself, if I was talking to a mother that was experiencing that, I would tell them, give them that safe place to talk. Understand that every time they have some type of outburst or an attitude, don't take it personal, and that the material things, they're just a filler. But you got to get to the root of everything. And if you got to put them in therapy, put them in therapy. Because as the mother, you may be navigating that road yourself, depending on your relationship with that father. Not every relationship is healthy, but you still now have to kind of try to navigate that world for you and for that child. Because at the end of the day, even if you all weren't close, then you still have to put yourself in the shoes of, dog. I don't even if I needed him, he's not here anymore. And he or she does need him, and he's not here anymore. So it would be trying to find a way to get that child some type of community and getting yourself a community as well, so that you all can work through that in the different aspects that it needs to be worked out in.
Thank you. The idea that my child has a need is something that I think is a good place to start, because whether the relationship with the adults were good and bad, that person's absence is a different dynamic than this child that has a need. And to look at it just like your child needs food, they need water, they need their mental, it's not dismissive. Do you feel like that people go, well, they're just a kid, that it's not going to be that much on them, and the adults are doing their thing?
I think sometimes it does. Not from everybody, but I think sometimes it does. Because a lot of times they be like, well, they may not remember them anyway, and not understand that, again, a void is a void. Even if that parent is alive and the parent is absent, that child still has a void. I have two sons. Their dad was not in the picture. And with me putting them in mentoring, the guy that was over the mentoring, he said, regardless of whether you bring another male in their life that's going to be what they need, they're still going to have that void from their biological father. So if they have that void from a biological father that is living, imagine that void that they're going to have from a father there's not even a possibility of that father being there. And so I feel like no matter how young that child is, learn how to kind of have those conversations at different stages in their lives, even if that father is, maybe not deceased, but what if that father is locked up and he's serving life and he's been locked up since that child was 1 or 2 years old? There's still going to be some type of void, and that child may say things that you don't really think they know what they're saying, which they may or may not, but there's some truth to it. And there's something that is feeding that emotion. So it sometimes may take more work than sometimes as parents we feel we have the capacity to do.
Ooh, I mean, you said speak to them. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. To speak to them at the place that they're at. The conversation you're going to have with a 3-year-old is going to be different than the conversation you're going to have with a 16-year-old, which is going to be different than a conversation you're having with 20-year-old about that void. I mean, you being a publisher, a writer, there are so many resources that the parent can say, okay, I don't know how to navigate this. This is uncharted territory. I'm dealing with my own situation with this person not being there. But I've got to remember that this child is the priority. This is the assignment that I took on when I brought this life into the world, and I kept it and start rearing it. There's a lot of selflessness that's involved in trying to do that.
It is. It is, but I think if we get back to the basics of or try to a new norm of being honest with ourselves as well as, we were kind of raised in eras where they said what happens in my house stays in my house, sweep this under the rug. But I believe like if we stop sweeping stuff, because the only thing that happens when you sweep it under the rug is you just don't see it, but you're still suppressing it. So I have tried to be more communicative with my children. So if I'm having a bad day and they call me and they on some they want to play and I'm not in the mood to play, I'll tell them, listen, I'm not in the mood right now because of A, B, and C, and I don't want to take this out on you. And so that teaches them emotional intelligence. I was dealing with something at work this week. My son sent me a text message. I said, I didn't even respond to the text message. When he got in the car, I said, you want to say that to me in person? Because I might have took it the wrong way in text. And he was like, well, I was going to text you and tell you I wasn't trying to be smart X, Y, and Z because they know, like, wait a minute, who you talking to? And so when he told me in person, I said, did you ever stop to think about A, B, C, and D? I said, and not only that, listen, I had a bad day at work and I really did not want to snap on you. So this is another reason why I asked you to explain yourself. And so once we said that, it also causes him to do self-reflection on how he approaches me and how he approaches situations in life. And so I think if we learn to have that emotional intelligence and just be honest, because I've heard people say, well, I don't let my kids see me cry. I don't let them see this and I don't let them see that. So what are we teaching them? We're teaching them further. It doesn't make you a weak parent if your kids see you cry. It opens up a door for communication. Mom, what's going on? And it opens up a moment for you to be vulnerable and say, listen, this, and this is going on. I'm sorry. I can't be here for you fully right now. But if you just give me some time, I got you. If it comes to a parent that's dealing with a child that has lost their other parent, maybe you all are grieving on the same day and you can be each other's comfort, or just letting the child know, listen, I'm having a rough day because the other parent is not here anymore. And I really want to show up for you today, but it's kind of hard. And I know it's hard for us as parents to be that vulnerable because we're taught to be strong. Don't never let your kids see you weak, X, Y, Z. But I think it'll help our children if they saw us have those weak moments, and we won't raise children that are super strong but lack emotions, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense because there's strength in embracing our emotions. There is strength and operating in the fullness of what we have available to us. And our children will mimic what they see us do. And you make a good point. Oftentimes when I talk to people that have children, they don't know what to show their child of their grief experience, if anything, or what is too much. I talk to different people where they may have feel like their children are now trying to be this parent that is no longer here and trying to step into that role, which is not their responsibility. And I've talked to people that have never cried in front of their children. They'll drop their kids off at school and they're crying in the car driving away, in the shower, and they're afraid because this pain is so huge that they're afraid that it may damage their child. But at the same time, children will say, "Well, I don't even know if they even missed them or if it mattered because I never saw anything from them that displayed those types of emotions to equate that to them." I know for myself, I wanna say Mark passed in March. It was probably not until October that I had enough voice to talk to my children. I remember the text thread between the 3 of us, it was silence because we were just so numb and didn't have, I mean, besides a good morning or something there, but nothing of any depth where we used to talk and do things because sometimes you just don't know what to say.
Right. Right. And that's okay, because sometimes you don't have all the answers.
Right.
And it allows us to say, hey, as much as I want to have all the answers for you, I don't know. I just I just don't know. But right now, listen, we're all grieving. We're just all kind of numb, and I think it just boils down to acknowledging what we're feeling and what's going on, and being okay that it may go silent for some time, even with my siblings, we don't really talk a lot about my father's passing. They talk more about the bad memories that they have during his time of life. And they often ask me, why do you have such a more positive, or why do you have a different outlook on dad? And I have to tell them, I didn't have the same experience that you all did. You know, we can be raised by the same parents, but they had him in the home more than I did. So by the time I came along, my mom and dad had been married and divorced twice. I think at least married twice. Yeah, married and divorced twice. So I kind of was conceived during that second. I want to say they were married 2 times. It might have been 3. Either way it go, I was conceived during that last time that they was married, and within a couple years they were divorced. So I didn't have to experience the things that they saw in the home. So it was like, I don't have those memories. So why am I going to treat him the way that y'all treat him? And I didn't have the same experience that you all had. So, we just have to it's hard, it's not easy to do, because it also comes with unlearning some of the things that we've learned as a culture, you know. But I believe one step at a time, one day at a time, and we can all do better with this thing called emotional intelligence and grief as well. Not saying that it'll ever be a situation where you're not grieving somebody, because every now and then there are times where I still grieve my father, or I'll think about him, or I'll have a memory of him. Like I was talking to someone not too long ago, and I told them, I said, I because of the spiritual side of me, after they found him, because my father actually passed away in his apartment, and they didn't find him until his roommate found him like a week later. And shortly after they found him, my mom's father passed away. And so it was almost like a back to back type of situation. And right after their funerals, I was home in the bed, 11-year-old child, opened my eyes, and they were both standing at the foot of my bed. And I said, I hurried up and blinked a couple of times. They were gone. I rarely sleep in the dark after that day, because I was like, whoa. And so that let me know that both of them made it to the other side. They were now my guardian angels. So that's a memory that I have, a lasting memory that I still have of him. Now there's another funny memory that I have, but I will not put that out there. But we'll just say my father was an alcoholic, and the things that I saw, yeah, I don't think any child should see that at 9 o'clock. I mean, at 9 years old. But yeah, it's quite interesting. But so we have our good memories, we have our bad memories, but the grief is still the grief. Like for a long time, I was concerned about, my dad will never get to walk me down the aisle. And that's every girl's dream, is for her father to walk her down the aisle. That's something that I'll never have. I'll never be able to introduce a guy to my father. You know, I didn't get daddy daughter dances. I didn't get, dad wasn't at graduation. So there's a lot of key points that he missed. But what do? You just kind of keep pushing and you deal with it. There was times where I would be dating guys and they would do something or say something. I would just bust out in tears. And they'd be like, "Why are you crying?" I'd be like, "I miss my daddy." It had nothing to do with them. I just had a random grief moment. And sometimes we would look back on it and laugh. And other times it was nothing to say. So it's definitely a journey, especially, and I won't say just for us as young ladies, but it's definitely a journey for any child that loses that parent of any kind at an early age.
Thank you for that. There are so many things I want to circle back to if you'll allow me. One, that family members are going to grieve and have that memory of that person differently.
Mhm.
And you cannot force somebody to grieve the way you're grieving for the same family member. Literally, all of you having the same father, but based on what that experience looked like and the pain that can happen when people try to force somebody to grieve and have their experience the same way that they're having it.
Yeah, so true. Can't force it. Gotta let them deal with it how they deal with it.
My dad was a functioning alcoholic.
Mhm.
I remember we would spend the first day of the year always at my dad's mother house. That was how the whole family would come together. And my dad would drink and drink and then get in the car and drive us from 86th Street to 126th. And that was the most miserable way to start the new year, being driven home by this man that was so intoxicated. I remember being on the floor in the back of the car, praying and screaming and crying to hopefully get home safely. And I remember one year it got to a point that I could drive, and he was drunk and I just pushed him over and drove home. I was like, "I'm tired of starting my new year like this. I'm not doing this no more." And my dad, Chicago police officer, over 6 feet tall, that's how intoxicated he was that I could just drive home and be like, "Okay, I'm
Right.
we're not doing this no more." And it is hard because when you're a functioning person, that means he's going to work, he's doing those things, but the repercussions of those choices he makes or made becomes a part of my existence and my childhood. So I can fully relate to that. If a person, well, let me back up. You mentioned briefly about your faith or your spirituality and how that impact your life. Can you expand on that some more?
It was just from that from and that's just like a memory. So when
Okay.
you say how does it impact my life as a whole or during that time?
Both.
My faith has it has tremendously grown over the years. At that time when I lost him, I knew of God. I was raised in the church. I tell people often I was raised in the church, but I wasn't raised in the church. So what that means was I went to church every Sunday. I was there for Bible study, vacation Bible school. My mama drove the church van. We picked up people on Sunday morning. So when I say I was there, but I wasn't there. So I wasn't, it was like I grew up in a Baptist church where about 95% of the church was family. So therefore, I pretty much did what I wanted to do. If I wanted to go to sleep, I went to sleep. If I wanted to hang out in the finance room, I hung out in the finance room. If I wanted to go down to the fellowship hall, I went down to the fellowship hall. And so it wasn't until my later years that I really began to establish my relationship with God, but it's always been instilled in me. It's like I've been running from it for quite some time, but when I was to be 11 years old and to see two men in white suits at the foot of your bed, yeah, it was a shocker. I was not expecting that. But later finding out in life that it's not just me. My sister sees angels, her children see, I don't even want to say ghosts. They see angels and things like that. So it's actually something that's in the bloodline, but again, it was nothing that was necessarily taught or ingrained in us. So we've just kind of been figuring our way out on this journey of life.
Thank you. If you bumped into me in the laundromat and we started sharing our stories, I also had a dad that passed at 11 and he was an alcoholic, but I felt stuck. Like life screwed me and I blame every situation that goes wrong in my life to that moment at 11 years old. What would you tell me?
The first thing that most people want to say is it's time to get over it. But I would never tell a person to get over it. I would tell them that they need to work through it and find out why. Why did you get stuck in this place? Because the more we begin to have that dialogue, it helps us to get unstuck. We oftentimes get stuck in places because of of how traumatic it was for us. So if we bumped into each other in the laundromat and that was the situation, I would tell you that that was a traumatic experience for you. And the only way to unpack that, you're going to have to talk about it. You're going to have to feel how you feel. You have to work through all the emotions that you have suppressed over the years so that you can begin to see yourself move forward in who you're called to be, because you weren't called to just be stuck at that 11-year-old girl who lost her father. Although there was pain, and we hear this cliche a lot, there was pain for your, if there's purpose in your pain. I would like to say there was truly purpose in that pain. And now it's time for you to decide and not necessarily decide, but walk in it, because you cannot go through life in pain like this. It's not healthy. I'm not going to take away from your grief. I'm not going to take away from your loss. I'm not going to do any of that. But I would definitely encourage you to begin to walk that out and to try to work through the traumatization of losing your father, because it can be very, especially depending on how that relationship was, it can definitely be traumatic. And so you could be suffering not only from grief, but you could be suffering from a different form of post traumatic PTSD, And so how can I, now that we have connected, how can I be there to support you as you walk this out and get the healing and the clarity and begin to put one foot in front of the other, understanding that there may be some setbacks. It's not going to be pretty, but helping you walk that out so that you can become your best self. And like I said, not be stuck anymore.
So you tell me all of that, and I'm hearing what you're saying. All that sounds just like reliving that and just too painful. Like, how is that going to help me deal with that and having to relive that again?
Because it helps you to release the pain. A lot of times we suppress pain to the point where I would then begin to have you to look at, are you lashing out at people because of this? Are you saying this to people because of your grief? I would encourage you to take an introspective look at how your actions are affecting others because you're suppressing this pain. Yes, it's going to be painful to walk through it, but it's more painful to your body and to those around you because you won't deal with the pain. So the sooner you can begin to deal with the pain, the easier life may be. Again, you may never stop grieving your father, and I would never ask you to do that. But for your health, for your future health, for those who are around you that need to see your best self or as much as your best self as possible, let's walk through this. Let's relive this pain and let's unpack what you suppressed and what you thought you packed away, but it rears its ugly head every day in how you deal with situations.
That part right there, because that unresolved matter will show up in so many places. You may not be talking about it, you may not be thinking about it, but if you have not dealt with it, it is seeping out in so many different ways that when you go back and look at where things started, the origin of things started getting kind of messy, it will land you right there often.
Yep. I've been there and I've done that. And that's why I've learned to be more expressive of where I am. When I notice that my behavior is shifting, when I notice that my mindset is not where it should be, I'm saying, okay, what's going on? What have I not been able to release that I need to release? And if I'm once I'm able to hone in on that, if I don't have that person that I trust that I can call and kind of be that listening ear, then I will sit and talk to God in my room, be like, okay, God, I don't like this. God, I'm feeling this because of this, and I need your help to work through this. Or I'll journal, or I find some type of outlet that's going to help me work through it so that I'm not suppressing that and I'm snappy to people or things like that. Does it always work? No, because there may be something that I'm suppressing that I don't necessarily realize I'm suppressing until somebody says something. And then it's in that moment I'm now able to say, okay, this is what we need to deal with. And then, okay, what's the action plan? What's the game plan to work with that emotion or whatever has been suppressed? And trust me, I understand because sometimes unpacking that pain, it feels like it not necessarily it feels like, but you really are reliving that situation. But now that the situation is over, you can relive it, but now you have resolve on the other side. So yeah, it's painful, but it's necessary.
Thank you. You mentioned the term emotional intelligence. Can you expound on that? Some people may have never heard that term, curious of what that means and why they would even want to have emotional intelligence.
Yeah, emotional intelligence is just being emotionally aware of where you are, where other people are. It makes you actually understand others better. So when you're emotionally intelligent, you may see a 16-year-old young girl lashing out at her mom, and mom's like, "Oh, she's just being a bratty teenager." And you may be able to walk up to that mother and says, "No, mom, she's not being a bratty teenager. I guarantee you there's something that she has dealt with that she has not said to you. And you may want to talk to your daughter about what's really going on." So it makes you more aware of not only your own emotions, but other people's emotions as well. And it helps you to navigate life with them or help them navigate life with them and others because you can now kind of see a little bit deeper and you understand how certain emotions cause people to act out or react how they do, respond how they do. Then I can talk to a person and just sometimes in their conversation, I can tell you emotionally where they are and they don't have to say a word to me. So, yeah, that's emotional intelligence in a nutshell.
Thank you. You mentioned that you asked God for direction. How does God answer you, or how do you know that that's coming from Him and when you move forward after hearing from Him?
Because it's smarter than me. That's the best thing that I can tell people. It's like I'm asking for answers and I've been racking my brain. And when it finally comes, I'll be like, thank you, God. Thank you, Holy Spirit, for that. Because I'm over here being super analytical. And sometimes the answer is just so simple. And it's just like, girl, you done racked your brain and you are mentally exhausted. And the answer was right there in your face. So yeah, some people say it's this still small voice. I like to say whenever it just seems like it's like right there. When it seems like you've been racking your brain and then all of a sudden the answer just appears. Like you may not have even been thinking about it. And so I may go and say, you know what, God, I really want to do X, Y, and Z, but I just cannot think of them. I can't. Lord, what am I supposed to do? I'm making it so much more difficult. And he'll come back and be like, do this. And I'll be like, you know what? I didn't even think about that. That's how I know. Cause the Holy Spirit is so much smarter than me. And I'm okay with I'm okay with that. So that's how I know is because it's like, you know what, that answer was simple and it was smarter than what I was coming up with. Cause I was gonna take the hard route, but this is the easier route.
If a person thinks like talking to God is like God is this mysterious being and out there, and the idea of how do I as a human being communicate with this guy? What does that look like? And you trying to tell somebody that?
Oh my God. It's almost like when we were growing up and we had like these imaginary friends. To me, God is almost like having that imaginary friend because we never saw this imaginary friend, but in our minds, they existed. And we would talk to this imaginary friend about anything. We would play with this imaginary friend. And it just seemed like life was so great. That is what I would equate having a conversation and a relationship with God like. It's like having that imaginary friend, but you get the answers that you need. They may not be immediate. It may not be like you and I sitting here having this conversation and you're able to respond to me immediately, but you know that you have a place to land where no matter what you're going through, you can just start talking and God is right there. And it's like, God, I don't like this. This is not cool. And then you'll begin to get this resolve in your spirit. You'll begin to get direction. You'll begin to see things in a different light. And it's like you was looking at it from the most horrible standpoint, but then he comes and shows you how even in your worst of times it's working for your good. And you like, you know what? I still don't like it, but thank you. I still don't like what I'm dealing with, but thank you. So it's like having that imaginary friend as your best friend that has all the answers. If you just go and have that conversation and be open to receiving that answer, you may not get it in that same time span or that same day or whatever, but know that you're going to get that answer. And again, it helps you to release whatever. I had so many conversations with God during one season of my life. I would literally wait from the time I woke up to the time I went back to bed some days. I would just do nothing but talk to God and say, God, I don't understand why they're doing this. God, this just doesn't make sense to me. God, maybe I'm being too judgmental, but I'm just going to tell you how I feel about the situation anyway. And if I'm being too judgmental, Lord, just let me know. But it was helping me to get things not only off of my chest and out of my head, but then he would come back and show me, no, daughter, you're not being judgmental. You're seeing what you're seeing. No, I understand how you feel, but just know I had to remove them for a situation. I had to remove them for a reason, or I had to put you in this place of isolation. I had to hide you behind the veil. There's just certain things that I had to do for your protection. And it just really depends on the situation, but that's how I kind of would equate it to. He's just that I don't want to say imaginary because he's not imaginary. He's truly a spirit. But the best way that I can correlate it is having that imaginary friend that is always there.
Okay, thank you. What if you meet another person and they're talking about their dad has died and God took them and they're mad at God?
It's understandable. It is and to be honest, that was my sister. My sister felt like in the time span that we lost our dad, she lost her, she lost her, she lost not only her dad, she lost a guy she was dating. She felt like she had lost my brother. Now these weren't physical. Now the baby's daddy, he did die. My father passed away. But my brother was not around. So she felt like she had lost my brother. We lost my granddad. She felt like God was taking all the men that meant something to her from her. So she was truly angry with God. And while it's a hard conversation to have, I just have to give them the truth. And it's like we all have a set time and date to leave here. And because we do love these individuals, because we do get attached to them as we should, it's devastating when they leave this earth. But we have to understand that God already knew that they were going to be taken from us. And that each one of us has a timeline of what he knows we're going to accomplish while we're here. And I tell them, I say, feel how you feel. You can be angry with God. It's what you do in that anger, because God already knew when these events happened in your life that because you didn't fully understand it or because you didn't like it, you were going to be mad at him. So it's okay to be upset, but it's what you do in that upsetness that makes the difference. So while you're upset, talk to God about it. Even being mad at him, be like, God, I do not like you. I can't stand that you did this. This hurts. Because in your talking to him, you're going to get to the actual root of the reason of why you're feeling. It all boils back to pain. And know that even in your pain, God wants to be there to comfort you, but work through it, because I'm never going to tell you, I'm never going to be so insensitive that all I say is God, 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 God. Yes, I love God. But at the end of the day, you still are having human emotions. And I want to be able to help you to work through that as well. So I'm definitely going to encourage you in the Lord. I'm hands down, I'm going to do that. But I'm also going to bring that human aspect, that quote, what they like, or not what they like to say, but we tend to stay away from and always give it a negative connotation. I'm going to give you the flesh side of it, because we're in our flesh. It doesn't mean I'm acting in my flesh, but I want to make that as easy of a, not necessarily transition, but kind of understanding how you're feeling, why you're feeling, but at the same time, knowing that in due time, God heals all, and let you know it's not going to be easy. God is not going to disown you because you're mad at him. Listen, if we be honest, Job was somewhat frustrated with God when God was taking everything from him. He was frustrated, but he never gave up on God. So you can be frustrated, you can be angry, but don't give up on him, and be okay asking him why. I know that a lot of times we're taught, don't question God, but no, you can question him. How else are you going to get the answers as to what he's doing? Because he will give you those answers. And so that's probably in this moment how I would have to help them walk through their anger with God. Like I wouldn't dismiss it and tell them, "Oh, you shouldn't be mad at God. He's omnipresent. He know what he's doing." Yeah, he does. But in that moment, you need me to come from a different type of angle where I understand what you're going through. I'm there for you as you're going through it, but also not allowing you to take your eyes off of the bigger picture. So
Mm, thank you. How have you made purpose out of your pain?
I think because I pour into other people and I don't like people to feel that void. I don't like them to feel like all hope is lost. I spend a lot of time encouraging others. I spend a lot of time helping others. I spend a lot of time being there for others, because that's a lot of what, when you lose a parent, you don't get that. When you lose a parent and then the parent that's left behind doesn't know how to show up for you, it causes you to show up for other people the way that you wish someone would have shown up for you. So I show up for others how I wish somebody would have showed up for me.
Mm. Thank you for that. What was the turning point for you to become a life coach?
Just realizing that I was doing the work anyway. I was helping people. I was pouring into people. I was speaking to the youth, particularly probably that 11 to 13 age range. And so it was like, it just makes sense, and then going through different relationships. And it's like, well, now I can give you some relationship advice. going through my healing, it was like, okay, now I can give you some sound relationship advice and not just because I'm bitter because, it didn't work out for me. But no, being able to actually see people and see situations for what it was like, why not? And it also goes to showing up for others how others didn't show up for them. It's kind of in the same alignment.
It is. It is. You mentioned something that I wanted to talk about along with the line of anger, but bitterness and the damage that it can do in one's life. Have you experienced that or other people that you've helped?
I just realized when people are bitter, they're super negative because they're deep down, they're hurt because their life hasn't worked out the way that they want it to work out. And so when you're dealing with bitter people, you got to be like, I understand where you're coming from, but have you looked at it from this angle? Because they come off as negative, they come off as angry, they come off as it'll never happen for me. But you have to be able to show them. And again, I try to route everything back to finding that root cause. I just wholeheartedly believe if we find the root cause, you'll be able to start your journey to a better life, to a better mental state, a better emotional state. But a lot of times, and I said this on my live earlier, a lot of times we don't want to face the enemy of the inner me. We would much rather wrestle with that, or we would much rather say, well, this is just who I am. No, I'm sorry. It's really not. It's really not who you are. It's who you become because you haven't dealt with the enemy of the inner me. But if you deal with that, you'll see that you really are a loving person. You really do care about people. You really do want success. You really do want to be able to be happy in life. But because of the hand that you've been dealt in life, you feel like it's not going to happen for you. And so that's kind of how I made that transition because it's like I do it anyway. So why not put an official title on it, so to speak?
What are some things that you see people doing this life posted that makes you go, you did that?
Wanting to hold on to the past. They don't want to let it go. So they become petty, they become childish, and they do things just because instead of just maturing up and making better decisions. They'd rather be petty and gossip than become their better selves. And so again, you have to take them back to why they're like that. Why do you feel the need to be petty? Because I want to get them before they get me. Why do you feel the need to gossip? Well, somebody told my business. There's always a root cause to why people do what they do. And so it never ceases to amaze me what people do. I'll chuckle with them at first because 9 times out of 10, it probably is a little bit hilarious because listen, we all have our petty ways and stuff that we do. But now that we've laughed, because listen, that was hilarious. I would have never thought to do it that way, but you can't do that. Okay. So let's look at some other ways that you could have handled that. And then we begin to work through it that way.
Thank you. When what are some things to identify if somebody is or is not ready to be coached?
Excuses is number one. They got an excuse or a rebuttal for everything that you say. You know that they're not open for change just yet. They're not ready to relinquish. You can pretty much tell in a conversation how open a person is without even asking them if they're ready to make that change. Because it can be the simplest of suggestions. And if they rebuttal you, they got to answer for everything, especially a negative answer or just, well, I do this because of this. Like they have a reason why they do it versus a reason, well, you know what? They don't take that accountability. So when they lack that accountability, I know they're not ready to make that change for real.
Thank you. Who is Paula becoming?
Paula is becoming the best version of herself. She is becoming that person that has boundaries now because I didn't always have boundaries. She is becoming that person that is okay with saying no. She is becoming that person that doesn't mind telling her truth. You like it, you like it, you don't, you don't. And she's also becoming the person that God has called her to be. walking in the totality of what he's called me to be and not running from it and learning that people are going to be people, you know, learning not to expect me from other people, but at the same time, understand that I must have balance and I can't let you drain me because if I let you drain me, then I'm no good for anybody else. And so I'm just really becoming more bold, more confident, more secure in who I am and not shying back from those hard conversations and telling my truth and things like that. Like I have really looked at it's interesting you asked that question. I'm smiling because I've literally paid attention to my growth over the last 6 months to a year. The Paula this time last year was broken. She was hurt because of some recent events and she didn't want to be bothered with nobody. I didn't care who you were. I didn't trust anybody because it was like the people that I gave my ultimate trust to, I felt like they betrayed me. I felt like they abandoned me. And so instead of being hurt, I'll just go in my shell because that's my safe place. But realizing I can't be in that shell because the more I'm in that shell or that cave, those that God has assigned me to, I'm holding them up. And I don't need that blood on my hand. So she is becoming that person that has moved the stone from the cave and is, I want to say the cave has been blown up, but I think I keep a piece of it just in case. But but I'm more out of it than I'm in it. I used to be so deep in that cave. Nope, I wasn't doing it. And if I did it once, don't expect me to do it again. But now I think the cave is maybe 2 miles behind me. It's still a nice little jog away, but it's getting further and further in the distance. So yeah, I am definitely I'm growing up. That's what I'm doing. I'm becoming the mature adult version of Paula. Somebody told me one time, they said, you're becoming the Paula that you should have become in your 20s and 30s.
I don't know if
So,
we have the capacity to be that in our 20s, 30s. We don't have the knowledge and information and span to do that. That's tough. That's a tough one.
yeah, but I got where they was coming from because
Okay.
I wasn't in my 20s and 30s. I didn't put my foot down like I do now.
Oh,
I didn't, especially like when it came to parenting and relationships, like I would think it, I would feel it, but because I didn't like conflict, I would just be like, whatever. I was a people pleaser. Now I ain't trying to please nobody but God. So you like it, you don't, that's you. I'm embracing the peculiar Paula. I'm embracing the Paula that is very particular about certain things. I'm embracing the Paula that says, hey, I don't like when you do that. So don't do that. You know, I'm embracing the Paula that's able to, who before would go into a meeting with her manager and just kind of take whatever they say. Now I can go into a meeting with you and tell you what you're doing is wrong. This is not, but I understand it's the politics of corporate America. Take it how you want to take it. I'm gonna tell you the truth, and you do with it what you want to do with it. Like I literally had a situation this week where I told my manager, if y'all are going to nitpick at this and you're gonna overlook my work ethic, you're gonna overlook the value that I bring to the company because of this minor thing, y'all might as well let me go. Cause we're not doing this. I don't play along to get along in corporate America. I don't even want to be here, but I'm here because I need to pay my bills for now, you know. And the old Paula would have never said that. She just kind of would have took it and suppressed it and let it eat away at her. But now, we're not doing that. I literally had my manager tell me that I should do something because the VP would like it. I said, I'm not here for her to like me because of that. I'm here to do a job. I'm not here for her likes. That ain't what I didn't get hired to make her happy. And if that's what it takes to make her happy, she need to look at herself because I'm happy with me. But the old Paula would have just been like, okay, I'll do it. I'm not. I'm not conforming. Sorry, not sorry.
You said you like Paula. Do you love Paula, and have you always?
I absolutely love Paula now. I have not always loved Paula at all. There was things that I didn't like about Paula, but I wouldn't say anything. I would just kind of suppress it and I'd walk around kind of like this and just, did I say that right? Are they gonna like me after I say this? Maybe I won't say it because I'm worth now. I love me so much. I tell anybody, listen, I love me some me. I don't need your validation. I don't need you to tell me I'm pretty. I don't need you to tell me I'm smart. I don't need you to affirm me in life every single day. I'm good. I'm so content with Paula right now. But no, that's the Paula that I am now. But previously, because I had been through so much, after losing my father, I was taken advantage of, got pregnant, had an abortion. I had my first child at 18. I found myself in an abusive relationship at about 19, 20, and that made my self-esteem even worse. So for a long time, I didn't even feel I was worthy of being loved properly. Now, if you're not coming correct, don't come at all. I don't care who you are. That's even for my children. I have a boundary for my children. You get wrong, I will block you and not think twice about it because you do not get to disturb my peace. You do not get to continue to throw my past, and that's anybody. You want to keep throwing my past up. You want to tell me everything I'm doing wrong. Listen, I don't have I'm good. I love my peace. I know what I've done wrong. I've taken accountability for it. I'm doing better to improve in those areas. I can't change the past. I can't change what I said an hour ago when this started. But what I can do is show up now and say what needs to be said, or what I can say is what I can do is apologize. What I can do is take responsibility. Can't change the past, but I can do everything to establish a better present and a great future going forward. So I'm definitely loving this version of Paula.
Mm. If someone is listening to this and saying, "I don't like myself, I don't love myself, I don't even know where to start," what would you tell them?
For me, it all goes back to taking that introspective look. Why don't you? Let's start with what you don't like about you. And once you decide not decide, but once you see what it is that you don't like about you, now let's find out why. Who said something? Who responded a certain way when you did a certain thing? Who didn't respond the way that you thought they were going to respond? Because a lot of times we shape ourselves around others. And so it causes us to appease to them. And we put ourselves on the back burners, but ultimately we're not happy. So now you got to undo all of that. Mama didn't give you what you needed. It's okay. Maybe mama didn't know how to give you what you needed. Brother talked about you, but about your weight, but it sent you into a depression. Maybe you lost somebody and you grieved, and this is how you got here. Now you're stuck and you got to figure out how to get unstuck. So let's look at all the different scenarios of how you got here. And while we can't change that, let's establish a plan to help you undo and unlearn and relearn who you are and fall in love with who you are, embracing you. If you don't like something, speak up. I don't like that. Well, I used to always put you in pink as a baby. Well, yeah, I didn't never like the color pink. I just wore it because it seemed to make you happy. Because a lot of times as children, we do what makes our parents happy. And at some point, we got to realize that as we make them happy or other people happy, we're making ourselves miserable. So you got to get to know you. And this was something that a previous pastor actually helped me walk through. She said, you got to figure out what it is that you like about you, regardless of what anybody else thinks. What do you like about you? You take that on, you embrace it, and you walk it out. And that's how I've been able to get to this place. It's just embracing what I like and not accepting what I don't like. Now, I'm not saying that there's never compromise and there's never sacrifices, but it's a healthy balance of it now. Whereas before it was all about other people, just making other people happy. No, Paula deserves to be happy in life as well. So
Mm,
that's what I would give them.
thank you. I appreciate you giving time to this conversation. When you thought about us speaking, were there any other topics or subjects you thought we would talk about that we didn't cover?
Um, ac- Actually, no,
Okay. Any questions of me?
no, I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Not that I can think of right now.
All right. I will allow you to close out this conversation to our listeners.
I just close out by saying if you are a fatherless daughter, if you haven't begun the self journey, if you haven't begun the journey of healing, take that time to actually begin that healing process. Grieve dad, don't grieve the memories, but grieve dad, but also begin to unpack the pain that you've been suppressing so that you can truly see that even in your father's passing, there was still purpose in it for you. If dad stood for something and you don't know how to let his legacy live on, that's how what did dad stand for in the community, in the church, wherever it was, and determine how you can not only help his legacy live on, but you can also establish the legacy that is meant for you in his passing because there's still legacy to be established and carried out. So to all of my fatherless daughters, I want you to know that I love you. I want you to know that you always have a supporter in me. You always have someone that understands where you are and will always be here if you ever need me. You are not in this alone.
Thank you so much, Paula.
You're most welcome.
Thank you for spending another episode with Widowhood Real Talk. If you found the contents of today helpful, share the episode to anyone you know who may need it. Subscribe to the show and tune into Widowhood Real Talk each week. Then visit widowhood-realtalkwithtina.org to join the community and access additional resources. Remember, you are not alone in this journey.